Hi, my name's Sophie and welcome to episode 45 of the Link Building Show. Today I'm here with Eleanor and we're going to be talking about researching when it's not for massive data sets. So Eleanor, whilst a lot of press releases are data heavy, there are many different types that aren't. What are some of the main ones?
So the main two really are expert commentary and reactives. So for example, in expert commentary, we're obviously getting the expert's opinion on a question. So we might go to the client's website and see if they've got any information that we could use in our press release. Or we might go to the client directly and ask if they've got a quote that they could maybe give us to put in the press release. And that kind of gives journalists a bit more information on the topic coming directly from an expert, rather than just kind of information we've got, say, from data sets or kind of like, and us trying to interpret that. Also a reactive, that's quite quick, so you don't want to spend ages trawling through a load of like data and whatnot. You might see what's trending on Google, on Twitter, Instagram, and then try and find a quick data set that you can just pop into a press release and send off to a journalist.
So if you're looking at an expert commentary, is there any more background research you have to do for that, or is that something you work more closely with the client and the data's already there in a sense?
So preferably we'd get the information straight from the client, because we know they obviously know what they're talking about and we don't have to kind of like double check all our facts and whatnot. The expert can just give us kind of information on the topic and we trust them and they have already pre-approved that information. So we can just pop it straight in a press release, kind of angle it so the journalist might want to make a story out of it.
So if you're researching and it's not for a big data set, is that more at the earlier stages when you get a new client and you're trying to figure out who they are and like what their niche is and that kind of thing?
So new clients tend to give us, say, a fact file on what they're about, what topics they'd like to talk about, what topics they'd like to avoid, and we can normally base our press releases on that type of information. So say there's a certain area they'd like to focus on, we may then go to their website and think, oh, they've got quite a lot of information on this topic, and then we'd go to the client and say, this topic is trending, you've got some information on your website about this could be a good link to kind of send to journalists. So for new clients, we tend to base it more on the fact file. As we get to know clients, we might kind of go off on our own a bit as we come to understand them and they trust us.
So it's kind of a working relationship where they give you the initial information and then you build on that as you get to know them. So when you found an article that you want to turn into a press release on the client's website, or if you've had a conversation with the client and they've given you a quote, how do you take that information and turn that into a press release that you can send to a journalist?
So obviously we don't want to just rehash information that's already on the website. At the end of the day, journalists want to put out news stories. They don't want us to just send press releases and then to read it thinking everyone knows this. So we normally try and look at an angle. Again, we may look at what's trending in the news and see if the information on the client's website is relevant. So we normally try and look at kind of the information. We pick out information that might be interesting and try and put a spin on it that would appeal to a journalist, and they can think readers are going to want to read this.
So I suppose it's a balance between the press release PR side, where it's mostly research and writing focused, and the journalism side where you're looking for an anchor. You've got to find that bridge and be the bridge between writing the article and thinking about what the journalist wants as well.
And put our creative spin on it rather than just spitting out facts. We're trying to obviously put a story to this.
To make it engaging. Do you have any tips for someone who finds research a bit more difficult, or where they could start with an expert commentary or a reactive piece?
I mean, personally, I'm not so good with big data sets, so I do prefer, say, the expert commentary, because that's just information that we can turn into a story easily rather than looking at a bunch of numbers, trying to interpret them and then put it into a story. I suppose the best way, you could do background information, maybe look through different websites on Google, or kind of look at other press releases that your team's written. Maybe even go onto news sites and see what kind of stories they've put out and think, how can I take this kind of like angle and kind of put it to the data set I've already got, or the, say, quote that the client's given me, how you can kind of turn that into more of a story and kind of more of like an opinion piece rather than just facts and data.
So there are lots of ways that you can write press releases that aren't super data heavy and still get the results from the journalist. Amazing. Thank you so much, Eleanor. Thank you for watching this episode, and we'll see you next time.